I've been a hardcore Windows PC fan my entire life and only just started to use and learn about Macs a couple years ago when I started working here at MaxTech. And 6 months ago, I got my first ever Mac, the M1 MacBook Air. And ever since then, I've been completely turned into an Apple fangirl, and I can't blame myself one bit. So in this video, I want to talk about my personal experience with the M1 Air, how Apple stole the show, and if you should buy one or wait for the upcoming M2 MacBook Air instead. Which, by the way, Vadim made a great video on, so go ahead and check that out if you're interested. And while you're at it, click the subscribe button below to support the channel and help us reach our goal of 1 million subs by the end of the year. At this point, nobody can deny that Apple Silicon is on a whole nother level, and setting a standard that is nearly impossible to reach right now. We've even noticed a huge change of heart in our comment section about Apple. It went from a lot of hate towards Apple, calling them overpriced garbage, to now praise and excitement over Apple's new Macs because of their game-changing architecture and low pricing for the performance. And even die-hard Windows fans can't help but admit it. These M1 Macs are so overpowered that Intel stole the Mac guy and made ads trying to bash on Apple, and it completely backfired, only showing people how desperate and scared they really are now. And if that's not telling on how good Apple Silicon is, I don't know what is. I have the $1,000 base model with 8 gigs of RAM, which, by the way, you can get on Amazon right now for only $8.99, which we have linked for you in the description. Now, nobody can deny that this price point is insane for what you get. The previous base MacBook Air also came in at $9.99, however, it was almost unusable due to its thermal issues. I remember editing a video that Max made, testing the overheating issues on the Air, and the Mac literally reached 100 degrees Celsius just playing back 4K video in Chrome. And when updating Fortnite, the fans ran at over 6,000 RPM and the system slowed way down. And it stayed at that 100 degrees Celsius for the entire time. And even when Max manually maxed out the fans, it still wasn't able to cool itself down. All of that was because the fan was not connected to the heatsink. And it was that way on all of the models. You could spend $1,250 on the quad-core i7 model and still not have the fan connected to the heatsink. Fast forward a year, and Apple's own M1 Air doesn't even have a fan and completely smokes all of those Intel models, getting over twice the multi-core score as the i7. This was important to me because I need this laptop to do occasional video editing and productivity tasks. So not only did I need a thin and reliable laptop, but something with great performance too. Not only that, but the M1 actually outperforms every single mainstream CPU on the market in single-core performance, which leads to basically the fastest web browsing performance that we've ever seen. So browsing the web is super quick and snappy. There was never a time where I had to wait for my MacBook. It always kept up with me, which a computer should. While I used desktop PCs, my parents always used Windows laptops. And those were okay for a while, but then they would start to slow down and have a lot of issues. The battery health would completely drain, and they would have to have it plugged in like 24/7 just to stay on. I remember my parents constantly having to buy new laptops all the time because theirs would become completely unusable, and all they used them for was web browsing and watching videos. But after Max gifted her a MacBook Pro, I never heard a single complaint from her again. The battery life is incredible, the web browsing is super fast, and that laptop is gonna last her a long, long time. And not only that, but she won't have to deal with any more annoying Windows bugs. So in the past 6 months, it's now clear to me that macOS is so much more reliable than Windows, since I haven't experienced any crashes or weird bugs at all with the M1 Air. And speaking of software, when this M1 Air was announced back in November, basically everyone believed that there would be tons of bugs and issues with x86 apps. But in reality, Rosetta 2 took care of basically everything. And now 6 months later, it's shocking to see just how many popular apps have already been updated for Apple Silicon. And in my experience, every single app that I've used works perfectly with no software issues. So I've been really impressed. Now getting into some of the hardware of the M1 Air, the speakers are amazing. They're very crisp and clean, and they're so loud that I rarely have to turn them all the way up. This used to be a massive issue with my parents' Windows laptops, where you would turn them all the way up and you would still barely be able to hear them, especially over the fan noise. And it's crazy because we recently got some brand new Windows laptops in the office, and even those have quiet speakers, so Apple knocked it out of the park. But the even more curious thing is that the speakers on this Air actually sound louder than the ones on the more expensive Pro. Go ahead and take a listen for yourself and let me know what you think. Now, I don't use my webcam, but I've been editing videos here for a long time, and I've never seen any webcam that comes even close to the quality of the M1's, even though it's still 720p. So all of this comes down to the software, and Apple's software is unmatched, because the M1 chip comes with a dedicated ISP that fine-tunes everything to make it look great. Now, as far as the battery life, Apple rates it at 18 hours of video playback and 15 hours of web browsing. So you're getting more battery than you could realistically use in a day, and in many use cases like mine, it'll last you multiple days before you have to charge up. Another couple of additions with this Air is that it now for the first time has P3 colors like the Pro, so it's great for photo editing and stuff like that. And the new Instant Awake feature is honestly a bigger deal than it sounds when you use a laptop every day. And if you're trying to decide between the Air and the Pro, here's why I went with the Air and why I honestly think you should too. First off, it has so much more bang for the buck, coming in at $300 cheaper while having the same configuration. And at first, we thought that the Pro would have much better performance because of its fan, but the difference is so small that it's not really worth the extra cash at all, since the Air is still so powerful, more than most people will ever need. Now, there are a couple of downsides on this MacBook Air. For one, it only officially supports one external display, but for me, this isn't an issue because I bought this laptop to use as a laptop. But if you really care about it, there are ways you can work around this by using special software and adapters. Now, the other downside is that both of the ports are on the same side, which isn't a big deal, but it makes it less convenient for me because my power outlet is on the right side of my desk. So I have to reach the cable around to the other side to plug it in, which can be pretty annoying. But with all that said, I've been extremely happy with the new M1 MacBook Air, and I'd honestly recommend it to anyone, even those who have never used a Mac before. However, the only thing that you need to consider is that the MacBook Air is getting a redesign pretty soon. And based on renders made by John Prosser and Ian Zelbo, the people who have seen a real image of the redesigned MacBook Air, this one is going to be really great. We're going to be getting new colors, likely the same ones that we have on the 24-inch iMacs, and this new M1 MacBook Air is going to be super thin, with a flat top and bottom instead of a tapered design like the one we currently have. And the craziest part is that we're expecting a white keyboard and white bezels, but I actually kind of like it, since this image with the black bezels just looks a little strange and doesn't fit. The only downside is that it'll likely be priced at $1,200 and up, so if you don't have that kind of money to spend, I would honestly not wait for it and just go for the M1, which is on sale right now for $8.99 on Amazon. The M1 is extremely thin and light already, and the battery life is amazing, more than you could use in a day. The performance is insane, being more than people will ever realistically need, and being almost just as good as the Pro. And for that reason, being a way better deal. And it's going to hold its value extremely well for many years. There is no reason not to get this Air, and I would absolutely recommend it if you're on a budget, or if you're a college student and need it for just simple productivity. But if you have some money and some time, and you really like the next redesign of the Air, that one is going to be amazing and pack a lot of value simply for the exciting redesign alone. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, click the like button and subscribe to see more videos like it. This has been Angelika with Max Tech, and we'll see you in the next video.